Hello to all of you misfits who are tuning into this episode of the Introverted Misfit podcast. First things first, let's address the elephant in the room. I have taken an extended break of sorts from the podcast for the past month and a few weeks. Some of that break was intentional because I have chosen to focus more on in-person networking and community building ventures for the business side of things, while the online side of things takes kind of a back seat and is kind of on the back burner, which I'll touch more on that in just a second. But a larger part of my absence from doing the podcast has to do with some personal family issues regarding the health of a family member that needed immediate and extensive attention for a long time. And actually, those health issues are still being addressed and still going on. So I cannot make any promises about when I'm going to start publishing episodes consistently every Monday. Again, I don't know when that will be. However, this episode is one that I started drafting well before all of these other things in my personal and business life started happening. So I thought, while for the time being, things have kind of calmed down, the least I could do is finish this episode and record it and publish it and just let you know that I'm still here. The podcast is still alive and well. It's not dead yet. It's just taken a break. But back to that first part, where I mentioned that I was focusing more on in-person community building activities. I am excited to officially announce to my podcast listeners, because other people may have already heard, but I know for a fact I have not announced this here yet. Misfit meetups is a very new thing that I have just started doing. And even in just the first two meetups, well, first, let me explain what Misfit meetups is. Misfit meetups are casual gatherings that I have started to facilitate in my local area, and they are specifically for shy, socially awkward, or low support needs autistic people who are looking for a low pressure and judgment free environment where they can socialize, practice socializing, and meet people, meet like minded people. Um, the reason that I wanted to start these meetups is because despite all of the online coaching services and workshops that I offer in the day to day of my business, I came to the realization that none of that stuff, coaching, therapy, counseling, it doesn't really do any good if you don't implement the wisdom that you get from those sessions and apply it into real life. My core belief, um, as far as social confidence goes, and really the cornerstone of my coaching process, is that real social confidence comes with real life social interactions where you can practice having conversations, make mistakes without being ridiculed, and have a community of like-minded people who understand what you're dealing with. What you're dealing with regarding your nervousness around talking to people and social differences and social struggles and those sorts of things. And that's what inspired me to start hosting these in-person Misfit meetups. So the first meetup was held October 6th of 2025, and it had a really great turnout. We had about 16 people, which is nothing to scoff at, especially for the first one. And we had a lot of fun painting away the social spookies for the Halloween themed meetup. It was at Glazed Paint Your Own Pottery here in Auburn, Alabama. And this month's meetup, which is actually on Monday, Misfit Gaming Night Sip and Play, November 17th at Well Read Second Story Coffee Shop and Bookstore, which is a very nice, quiet coffee shop. And they also sell books, and they have different things like different events like game nights, trivia nights, some of the best tasting drinks, wine, and pastries that this side of town has to offer. So I'm really looking forward to that. We're going to be playing board games, doing some puzzles, and doing some other activities while we sip on some delicious drinks. So if you are in the area and you want to join us, there's not much time left to register. In fact, by the time this episode goes out on Monday morning, the meetup is tonight. It's Monday night. So last minute, get your last minute ticket. It's free, but you still have to register using the link in the description of this episode. I'm sure if you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see the table behind me. It's got all of these board games. That's for Misfit Gaming Night. I was just getting it ready right before I sat down to record this, actually. So it should be really fun, and I'm really looking forward to that one as well as the future meetups that I will be hosting. So that is just to catch you up on what's been going on, why I've been gone from the podcast for a while, and all the other exciting things that I have going on. But now on to the regularly scheduled programming, the main topic of this episode. Have you ever heard someone's social life be described as thriving? Or maybe you know someone in your personal life whose social life you would describe as being thriving. Generally, they are very extroverted, they make connections very easily, or maybe they're more of an introvert, but they still have managed to create a strong social circle for themselves that keeps them happy and motivated and emotionally full. Maybe you felt badly about your lack of a thriving social life, as you understand thriving to be. Maybe you have an idea about what a thriving social life even looks like. So you may think it means going out every weekend, hosting parties and get-togethers every weekend, even when you don't feel like it, never leaving a social event with at least three new people's phone numbers and social media to add to your contacts. At least that's what I used to think a thriving social life had to look like until I finally accepted the fact that I am a true introvert, an autistic one at that, who gets very overwhelmed pretty easily in social settings that are too busy and loud and overstimulating. And I finally realized that my version of a thriving social life will simply never look like the previously described version of a thriving social life, the extroverted version of a thriving social life. At least it won't exist without me getting severely burned out. I'm pretty sure I told that story a few episodes back about that one time that I had an estimated 100 conversations a day for 3 days straight, that one time in Vegas. And I quite literally passed out on the bed each night because I was just so tired from standing there and talking to people all day. It was a business trip that my company invited me to attend along with 20 or so other employees. And the most interesting thing to me was that at the end of each day, many of my more extroverted coworkers were ready to go out on the town and socialize some more. And when they were planning these evening activities, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, are you guys serious? After those hundreds of people that we just talked to, you want to do more of that? You don't even want to break first? That moment was very reassuring to me because it just highlighted that there truly is a difference between introverts and extroverts. Introverts who get their energy inward and need to recharge with alone time, and extroverts who are often energized by the idea of socializing like back to back. So those are not just made up labels or meaningless personality types. They are a real thing. In fact, just yesterday, I saw this meme on Instagram and it was showing the difference between introverts and extroverts in two different pictures. So, this first picture was this guy, an introvert, who is bored while he's talking to people, or he's either getting bored or he's getting tired and drained out. And so he goes somewhere to be by himself and do something. And then he's happy, not bored anymore. And the second picture was another guy, an extrovert who was bored of being by himself. So he goes with his group of friends to socialize, and then that's what makes him happy. Now, of course, if you've been a longtime listener of mine, you already know my opinion on introversion and extroversion. It's that it is a spectrum. So you probably won't fit 100% on one side of the spectrum, all of the time. There's likely a balance of both of those personalities or energies within us. But for the general purposes of my comparison, I must say that that was a very relatable meme. For our more extroverted counterparts, socializing energizes them. And for more introverted people like you and me, too much of that is just not our idea of a good time. The last thing we want to do after a long day of socializing is socialize some more and be around more people. My version of a thriving social life is a manageable one that works for my needs. That means friends who understand my need for alone time and don't take offense when I need to leave the function after 2 hours while everyone else wants to stay a little longer. That means having the kind of friendships where we don't have to talk every day or even every week in order to remain friends. And as far as regular socializing goes, I go to church every week, and it's a pretty small church, so I know everybody there. I've grown up with them, which is nice. I network a few times a month as part of my business, which is pretty much a requirement for a solopreneur coach like myself. I live close to my immediate family. We live in the same city, so we talk a lot. And of course, the monthly Misfit meetups are another way for me to socialize, even though I'm more of a facilitator than a participant in those meetups, but it still serves a purpose for me. That is what manageable means for me. That is my definition of a thriving social life as an introverted person who also happens to be on the spectrum. And your social life can be manageable too. It doesn't have to be something that you dread doing. So, in this episode, I want to take you through some steps you can take to build an introvert friendly and autistic friendly social life if that applies to you. Or, in other words, a manageable social life, not a thriving one. So, a social life that will not overwhelm you and doesn't make you drag your feet as you're getting dressed to go. And I had 3 points I want to touch on. Number one is do things you enjoy doing. I was having this conversation with someone a while ago about how to meet people and make friends. And this guy, he's an ultra extrovert. And he was telling me it's really as simple as going places that you enjoy and doing things that you like to do and then talking to people. Now, I will admit, uh, of course, because this person was an ultra extrovert and not shy and quiet at all, it's easy for them and other people who are like them because they are a true people person. And so when they posed this suggestion, as if it really was that simple, of course, I'm sitting there thinking, well, I know a group of people who would beg to differ with that statement of it being easy. But for what it's worth, the concept is true. You put yourself out there, you do things that you enjoy doing and that you find interesting, and you're going to find like-minded people who you are naturally going to start conversation with, start conversations with, and make connections with them. Now, depending on what exactly your social struggles are and how severe they are, you might need some help with the socializing aspect of that advice, which, if that's you, make sure to book a free connection call with me and we can talk about that one on one. But the best place to start is go places and do things that you enjoy. Those are the environments where you're more likely to meet people with those similar interests and perhaps similar personality types. You like reading and doing other quiet activities? I know a lot of public libraries host events that involve either books or some sort of crafty activity. You like creating art? Do some research in your local area to see if anyone hosts painting classes, pottery classes, or painting pottery, or other types of art classes. I know most downtown areas have places like that. Or again, your nearest public library may host art classes or a local recreation center probably has some classes like that too. And another tip that I just thought of. You can also check your area's Facebook group because I know for a fact where I live, there's this Facebook group called What's Happening in Insert City. And then and I a lot of I've seen a few other cities have that kind of a Facebook group too. And I know there are always people advertising different events and activities and whatnot in those groups. So that's another great place to start. Number two, don't completely change who you are just to fit in. Now, this point is not to say that you never have to modify your behavior or your communication skills if you want to build a social life, especially if you struggle with your social skills or are on the spectrum and you're looking to become a more socially confident version of yourself. But in my opinion, that's not quite the same thing as being fake. What I mean by saying don't completely change yourself is that I don't recommend you change who you are at your core just so that people will like you. You shouldn't feel the need to agree with everything someone says or pretend like you don't like something that you actually do like because you don't think the other person is a fan of it. Or on the flip side, you shouldn't feel the need to pretend that you're interested in something that you really don't like just because other people are into it. And most relevant to this conversation, you shouldn't have to pretend like you're an extrovert just to hang out with the cool kids, so to speak. Forcing yourself to be someone that you're not just so that people will like you likely means there's some insecurity going on about who you really are. You may be insecure in your naturally introverted personality, or you may lack the confidence that people will actually like your quiet, reserved, introverted nature. So here's what's likely going to happen when you try to act extroverted when you're really not. Especially if you happen to be on the spectrum, these definitely apply to you. The first thing that's going to happen is you'll feel like you have to upkeep this very unsustainable front because if people are initially attracted to the extroverted personality that you're presenting, then that's what they're going to expect later on. And that gets very, very tiring very quickly because now those people expect that you're going to enjoy going out every weekend to these very busy, crowded environments. And when you no longer want to go out with them to those places, they'll be very confused as to why. They'll probably, or they might think that you don't like hanging out with them anymore, when in reality, you just don't really like doing those kinds of things and you were only doing it so they would want to hang out with you. That's the first thing. Second thing that's going to happen, maybe, is that you're not going to meet people who genuinely want to hang out with the real you. So you're not meeting people who are actually compatible with you. Because remember, those people are attracted to the extroverted front that you're putting on, not the naturally more reserved you. I'm going to tell you a secret. It took me a long time to learn this, a long time of getting over social anxiety, finding my voice and not being afraid to stand up for myself. You do not have to be friends with everyone you meet. That would be exhausting and impossible for anyone to achieve. There are times when you might be with the wrong crowd of people for your personality, or maybe the wrong environment that's just not well suited for your needs. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I traveled to Texas to visit my sister and some family. This is my extroverted people person sister, the one that I've definitely mentioned before on this podcast. Well, while I was there, I had the opportunity to meet a group of her musician friends. They were in a praise team band together at the church that she attends. So naturally, these people were very animated and fun, really sociable, really cool, and they just had this really solid group dynamic. They could joke around with each other, they could laugh at each other, they could make fun of each other in kind of a playful way. And it was all just very natural for them. They didn't have to think about what was going to come out of their mouth. They just went with the flow. So at this point, it's like I'm watching a tennis match happening. right in front of my eyes. Or maybe a better comparison would be a volleyball match because there's multiple people uh, talking to each other in this group. And I'm just sitting on the sidelines, just sitting in the bleachers. Even though I'm in the group with them, I'm just watching it happen. And I just could not figure out what to say or how to join in because their personalities were just so different from mine. Well, if this scenario had happened to me years ago, when I still had very bad social anxiety and was very insecure, and I still cared greatly about fitting in, I would have felt bad about feeling invisible and seemingly being ignored. But now it doesn't really faze me. If I clearly don't fit in, I do not force it. I just don't feel the need to do that anymore. I'm not like them. I don't socialize like them. I don't socialize in the same ways as them. And that's okay because there are other people in the world with whom I do fit in without having to completely act out of character. For my Spectrum listeners, I know you're probably thinking to yourself, isn't masking already kind of a form of faking it or putting on a front? And to that, I would say, I don't think masking is faking a personality. Masking changes the way that you externally communicate your inner thoughts and your feelings. And it's a way for us to cope with our social differences. But that's not quite the same thing as changing who you are at your core, in my opinion. Those are different. Moral of the story is you do not have to fit in with everybody, and everybody does not have to fit in with you. So you do not need to completely change who you are, what you're interested in, what you believe, simply for the fact of making people like you to a certain extent. And number three, listen to and honor your social battery. So it's no secret that introverts have a limited social battery, meaning there is only a certain amount of time that we can comfortably socialize until we are ready to leave the function and just be alone. And if you are on the spectrum, you understand the additional challenge of getting overstimulated in a social setting while you're starting to feel drained and tired. That is not the time to push through the pain. Unless, of course, you absolutely have to, because sometimes we just have to deal with things, right? But if you can help it, that is the time to listen to your body and maybe take a little break to collect yourself and calm yourself down. You can excuse yourself, you can take a trip to the restroom, stroll around the room and sip something to drink, do something discreet that doesn't draw too much attention to yourself, and then jump back into socializing when you're ready. Especially for my autistic listeners, when you feel that overstimulation creeping up, do not ignore it because you just might work yourself up to having a meltdown. Another tip for my Spectrum listeners, if you want that social battery to last a little longer, is something I like to call masking within your means. So, in other words, create a mask for yourself that is doable for you and is not going to tire you out so quickly. So, for the more introverted autistic people like you and I, that means not overdoing it with the facial expressions, the talking, the vocal inflection, the hand gestures, all of those behaviors that go into being social and socializing that we have to think 10 times harder about. Do them reasonably within your means. So when I'm socializing, my mask tends to be pretty subtle. I do not pretend to be Miss Happy Go Lucky. I don't exaggerate things when I'm talking or having a conversation with people. I basically I do the bare minimum. That's going to sound bad, but I mean that's what I do. I do the bare minimum. I do enough to let the other person know that I'm present, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm interested, I want to engage with them. And for the most part, that works really well for me. It's doable for me. It doesn't tire me out quickly. And it's something that I can sustain long term. Then maybe a couple of hours later, when you've really had enough socializing, go home or go wherever you can to take a break by yourself. When I was in Vegas earlier this year with my coworkers, I remember sometimes I had to tell my coworkers like, "Hey, I'm good on the on the post work activities. I don't want to go on the I don't want to go out on a night in Vegas, which is already very overcrowded and busy and overstimulating. I kind of just want to be by myself right now, and so I'm going to go back to the hotel and just relax." I did that like 3 of the 5 nights that we were there. Un unshaming, what's the word? Not unshamingly, shamelessly. I did that shamelessly because I knew if I overextended myself and just put up with it, I was not going to be very fun and I might just snap at somebody. Um, so yeah, do something that recharges you. Lay on the bed, take a nap, make a cup of tea, hot chocolate, watch TV, read a chapter of a book, do a puzzle, anything that is going to help you recharge. So, those are the 3 focal points of this podcast episode. Number 1, do things that you enjoy doing. Number 2, do not completely change who you are just to fit in. And number 3, listen to and honor your social battery. Now, creating a manageable social life is one thing, but if you happen to be one of those introverted misfits who struggles with extreme shyness or social anxiety, you've got bigger fish to fry before we can talk about building and managing a social life. You, my friend, might benefit from some social confidence coaching so that you can first get past that initial fear of socializing and talking to people. So, if that's where you are currently in your social confidence journey, if you're still stuck in that too nervous and awkward to talk to people stage, book a connection call with me and let's talk about it. Let's talk about your struggles, your unique struggles, and the solutions that are going to work for you. Check the link in the description or go to theintrovertedmisfit.com/coaching to learn more about my program, Communicate with Quiet, Quirky Confidence. And you can also find my single 60 minutes confidence booster sessions. Those are just single one-time sessions that we can go over 1 or 2 specific issues in your social life that you are facing right now. So that's all for today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed this talk, please don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button. Leave a review and or a comment whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify podcast, or Apple podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share this podcast with a friend. Thanks for listening and have a great day.